What a treasure to be joined by Ryan Rishaug, our Edmonton Bureau Chief at the Edmonton Bureau. What a treat. Buddy, the Oilers almost pulled off an amazing comeback, but they dug themselves in such a massive hole to start this game. What happened early on to this team?
So, Jay, one of the biggest concerns I think a lot of people had about the Oilers coming into the postseason was all the injuries they had late in the year meant they did not get a chance to get their line combination set, their D pairing set. There was not a lot of continuity. We knew it was going to be messy as far as continuity heading into the playoffs. And I think that reared its ugly head in the early going. We'll take a look at the goals against here, and I'll kind of explain it. So Josh Brown has barely played any hockey in the last month or so. We just recently called up from the American League, killing a penalty in front, kind of in no man's land. Doesn't have a body, doesn't have a stick. On this goal, a new look line with Trent Frederick in the lineup. All four players were battling for a puck, all three forwards on one side of the ice. And then it just kind of went downhill from there. So lines that aren't necessarily used to being together. And then in the second period, when the Kings were being so stingy, the mistakes started. Evan Bouchard, tough mistakes on back-to-back goals. So bottom line, Jay, these D pairings had not had a lot of time to play together. Wallman hadn't been in the lineup recently. Trent Frederick had played all of 7 minutes with this team. We saw some mistakes there. Josh Brown, not a regular. They did manage to pull it together, but it took them half the game to find that stride. And I think in the early going, that lack of continuity hurt them.
And you said it, Ryan. Kris Knoblauch all over the place with the lines, but in the end, he puts McDavid and Draisaitl together. He almost wins the game that way. So what does Knoblauch have to do moving forward, in your opinion, in terms of the line combinations?
Yeah, probably not going to want to keep them together, because I think the Oilers believe that the long-term recipe for success is for those players to be on separate lines. But I think in this case, you have to keep them together. I think that they showed a fire and they showed a domination level. I think you just have to look to lean on that again in game number 2. So this game was completely out of hand. It was a train wreck, right? And what do we see? We see frustration. We see fire. We see anger on the bench from Leon Draisaitl. You know, absolutely just having his say, sitting on the bench there. And, you know, I believe he's talking to his teammates. I believe he's talking to his coach there. And we see a significant shift. Draisaitl and McDavid get put on a line together to finish out this game. Connor McDavid just goes supernova, basically. He ends up with 4 primary points, almost lifts this team, you know, to complete that comeback. It was really something what they were able to do. So, look, I think in an ideal world, those two can play on separate lines, and that's the way to go long term. But I think right now they're showing you signs that they're ready to will this team through the difficult portion that they're in right now, Jay. This is not a comfortable team. They're not hitting a stride. They don't have that feeling where they know what their game is because there's so much that's new. I think you got to keep those guys together and just let them see if they can power this group through.
I just chatted with Craig Button about Stuart Skinner, and he sort of poo-pooed me, wondering if there might be a question about Skinner's play in Game 1. What's your opinion, Ryan? You know, we saw Calvin Pickard play really well for this team down the stretch. Any chance we see any sort of a change?
Too soon to pull the rug out from underneath Stuart Skinner. And I completely respect and understand why you're asking the question, Jay. And I think you will hear a lot of that noise coming out of this market, but that's normal. Anytime the Oilers, you know, lose a game and give up that many goals. But Stuart Skinner made some critical saves in this game that stopped it from getting even further out of hand than it actually was. I did not view Stuart Skinner as a core issue that this team had tonight. I think that they need to give him an opportunity to get back in and play better in front of him, because if they can start next game the way they played in the back half, you know, like I said, Stuart Skinner was not the issue here tonight for me, Jay. So yes, there will be noise, but for me, it's way too soon. I think Skinner did what he could. Obviously, he'd like to not give up that many goals, Jay, but I don't know how many you're going to pin directly on him. I think he was screened on that overtime winner, or on that late game winner with Warren Fogle jumping around in front of him. So there will be noise. I don't think there'll be a change.
That is absolutely fair. Game 2 in Los Angeles Wednesday night, and we'll talk to Ryan after that game as well. Thanks for this, buddy.